When innovation and opportunity have the chance to collide, then you have a legitimate shot at making tangible progress towards advancement. Kevin Mako knows a thing or two about product development, and he lives and breathes for the opportunity to put inventors and entrepreneurs on the fast track to success. He's the owner of Mako Designs, which is a pioneer firm which provides world-class end-to-end physical consumer product development, which is tailored to product startups, inventors, and small manufacturers. Mako joined me this week to have a robust discussion on the innovation and ingenuity of product development. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Mako has several interests outside of the office, so I wanted to begin our conversation by getting to know him on a human level, and what gets him most excited when his workday is over and he has some time to himself.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'd say the thing I'm most interested in right now is my flight training. I'm training to be a private pilot, and I'm doing all the solo work now and whatnot. But I'll tell you, the industry is one of the coolest and most advanced industries I've been a part of because everything is regimented, and I really feel it makes you be a better person, be better prepared, keep your cool in emergencies. There's a bunch of lessons outside of just flying a plane that I think are phenomenal for anybody. But a big part of it for me is just trying to keep fresh. I'm 37 now, and I'm just trying to make sure that I never lose that pursuit of lifelong learning. And this was a big one to take on, amongst all other things, like having a kiddo and another one on the way and all that. But I must say, I absolutely love the pursuit of really any new endeavor. I feel like any hobby, no matter what it is, whether it's flying or train set or who knows what, heck, taking on a podcast, everything is really a valuable life lesson. As long as you keep pushing outside your comfort zone, you're going to grow.
Yeah, life, as I always say, is a constant game of both networking and learning. And I have to tell you, Kevin, you don't look a day over 25, so you age well, okay?
Thank you. Trying to hang on as best I can.
Mako explains how his firm continuously finds itself associated with inventors who are creating products to solve problems, remain on the cutting edge of innovation and ingenuity, and who are changing the landscape of entrepreneurship as we know it today.
I appreciate it. I actually started it in high school and incorporated it in university. And I took the big gamble after university to turn down the job offers. It was 50K in student debt, and the goal was to build this company. And if I couldn't survive, I was like 6 months of cash flow away from going bankrupt a number of times throughout my 20s, but all with this dream, the same business, the same dream. And I've been doing the same job since then, which is doing world-class product development for physical hardware inventions tailored to startups and small businesses. And that's it. That's our little niche that we pioneered. And that's the company that I'm a part of now. We've got 4 offices from coast to coast: Austin, Miami, Toronto, and San Francisco. And we just work on all kinds of crazy inventor ideas and hardware startups and small businesses that are building the next version of their physical product to go to Amazon, Walmart, Shopify, whatever else, right?
Tell me, what's the most interesting company or product that you've worked on recently that you're most excited about, buddy, with the companies that you work with?
You know what? I can't dish out my most interesting. That'd just be mean to everybody else. But I must say, there's a lot of cool stuff that's coming down the pipeline. If you're interested in new emerging technologies and products, just check out our website at makodesign.com. Look at the main page. There's dozens and dozens of like crazy new products, and that's just some of the stuff that we can talk about worldwide. But what I'm really excited about right now, just from an industry perspective, is anything in the health and wellness field, sustainability, augmented reality or virtual reality, emerging tech. I mean, these are, we do things everywhere from a new type of uh, toilet plunger, triangle shaped toilet plunger called the tri plunger, up to more complicated products like the Go Fish underwater fishing camera, which literally is recording fish as they hit your lure underwater. So, and quite the gamut in between. But it's amazing to see how so many new technologies, both electronic and non-electronic, are coming through the pipeline that allows inventors to come up with new ideas to essentially improve people's lives around them.
Fantastic. And I also know, Kevin, that you're a guest lecturer over there at Ryerson University in engineering. So I'm also wondering your thoughts on how we get more people excited about the field of engineering, and so that we can close the labor gap with engineers as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. I like that you brought that up. I've been a big fan. Actually, the only charitable contributions that I or my company does are surrounding education. That's just, that's the field that we can help the best. And there's lots of other things out there, but that's the one where we've been a big part of in both student innovation awards, like the Mako Ryerson Innovation Award, which rewards the best invention idea of the year every year for a $10,500 prize. But just in other education too, like we've got over 1,000 blog articles on every different possible element of inventing or designing a product or developing something or getting something to market, as well as our podcast, the Product Startup Podcast. Again, all in the education field. So Product Startup Podcast is the biggest podcast in our little industry of hardware product development. But again, it's an end-to-end on how to get that idea from a sketch on a napkin to a big business, which is scaling. So for me, it all comes down to education. Everything that I do in terms of guest lecturing or being an actual lecturer at Ryerson or guest lecturing at many universities around the world or keynote speaking, it all comes around to helping educate the world on how anybody with an invention idea can really just put in the effort and get their invention turned into a product, that product turned into a product business, and then grown in whatever way or sold or whatever else you want to do from there, right?
Fantastic. And Kevin, for you, what's the best part about being Canadian, buddy, or living in Canada?
Oh man, there's so much that I love about Canada. I must say, I'm a big fan of water, and we're surrounded by 10,000 lakes here in Toronto. As you go north, so big fan of taking advantage of all that has to offer. But I'll tell you what I really also like about Canada is just the ability to work and do business all over the world. We've got numerous international clients. We've got 3 offices in the US, and it's great to just be kind of in this. I feel like Canada is really a center point of a lot of global commerce and a lot of different cultures and different people, and right in the backyard of the US. So it's a great spot to be, both as from a personal perspective, but also from business. And I'll tell you, I also spend, up until COVID, I pretty much would spend 6-7 months in other places, not just Canada. So yes, Canadian born, but a lot of my work, a lot of my efforts are all over the place, especially in the US.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a little business diversification, Kevin. Absolutely. And since you're successful in the field of product development and entrepreneurship, Kevin, I'm curious to ask you how you define the difference between business sustainability versus trying something as sort of a business accelerant that may or may not work for the long-term growth of your business?
Yeah, it comes down to the difference between a hobby business and a life business, a lifelong business. And my belief heavily, and I've worked with over 1,000 hardware startups. So it's not just about hardware. This is just startups in general. You've got this great period. If you've got a job right now, but you've got a business idea, the easiest thing you can do is just to try to work on that idea when you have spare time, when you have free time, whether it's after work or on the weekends or on your lunch break. Nobody can honestly give me an excuse whether they can't squeeze in a half an hour a week to work on their project. And as that starts to materialize, you can spend more and more time to the point where you make that big decision to switch from part-time entrepreneur to full-time entrepreneur, which is a tough one. I'll tell you, I did it straight out of university. I don't advise that. I would likely advise either A, get an investor, or B, get a job and build up a bit of a bank account first before venturing out on your own. But I did it, and others have before me. And I would say that one of the biggest things to keep in mind is just prove that you have a little bit of traction before you take the full plunge. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to actually be selling units, whether it's a physical product or whether it's an app. It doesn't mean you have to have real users, but it does mean that you should have some interest from potential users, from potential buyers, distributors, partners, whatever it might be, before you take that plunge. And the easiest way that you can do that is spend a little bit of time, ideally every day, but if you can't, at least spend it once or twice a week, get a little bit of time and push the pendulum further. And one thing I'd like to add to that is when you're building your business, focus on the highest priority items first and work your way down the list. So if you only have 1 or 2 hours a week to work on something, at least you spend an hour or two working on your big elephant in the room, major ticket items before you get cruising down the list to the fun or interesting or unique items. That should always come second place to your most important ones first. So if you spend a little bit of time every day, as well as focusing on your high priority items, eventually that hobby may merge into a lifelong business.
Thanks for sharing that, Kevin. And I also wanted to ask you, I was born with cerebral palsy, and I also work with businesses to diversify their workforces to incorporate more folks with disabilities into the workforce. So tell me, as an entrepreneur yourself, tell me the importance of infusing people with disabilities into the entrepreneurship and the workspace as well.
Absolutely. Just keep in mind that the more diversity, and no matter which way you define diversity, the more diversity means more ideas. More ideas means the better ideas are going to start trickling down. It all starts at the top of the funnel, right? Which is breadth of ideas. And that might be the way a business is run, the type of business, the product, the offering, whatever it might be. The more diversity that you have in your life in general, no matter who you are, the more you put yourself out there, the more you open your mind to different ideas, different possibilities, different ways of life, etc., the more ideas that there will be, and the more seeds that you plant, the more of those will actually grow into great things. So diversity, no matter how you define it, is important in any business. And the more that you can incorporate in, the better off you'll be across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people that inclusion is the gateway to independence in every aspect of life. So I certainly agree with that. But Kevin, I know that you've lived and traveled all over the world. So tell me, what's the best part about traveling for you? And what have you learned most about yourself living abroad?
Well, we were just talking about it, and it's diversity, understanding different cultures, different ways of doing things, different beliefs, really opening the mind. To get a little bit deep, and this is in the weeds a bit, but when you do anything for an extended period of time and only that thing, you will not realize it, but you will get an increasingly narrow field of view because you're living in a bubble. We all are. Everybody's living in their world bubble. So when we talk about diversity, one of the easiest things that you can do is just understand a new culture, understand a new person, understand a new way of life, understand a new perspective, be open-minded to that. And instead of pushing an opinion, listen and learn and truly soak in put yourself in their shoes, put yourself in that country's shoes, or in that person's shoes, or in that business's shoes. Truly try your best to understand them before you form an opinion. Well before you form an opinion, just learn, just soak it in. And one of the best things about travel, if you can really open your eyes and be a part of another culture, I especially believe it, you can go beyond just the tourist sites, really get to know some people, live with some people from abroad, understand their way of life, not just see the tourist sites that are engineered for either making money or whatever purpose. Get involved in what truly is going on a local basis. It'll expand your horizons in many ways. It'll allow you to see new things and appreciate and just simply get better at learning than you were before.
And tell me, Kevin, what are you most grateful for in life, or what do you value the most, and what's the best part about living life for you, buddy?
That's a good question. The first thing that always comes to mind is just being here, being present, and being positive. I think that's an incredible thing. If you could just stay positive and be positive, and not only does it open up opportunities, not only does it statistically and scientifically lead to more success, no matter pretty much what way you define success. And this is well documented in numerous studies, but just being present and positive in life will open many doors, many opportunities, and just enlighten your mind, allow you to learn. And, that's one of those things that you have a choice, which is phenomenal. So many things you can't control in life, but the one that you can control is your own attitude and your own perspective towards things. So, and I'm not saying it's easy, which is why you asked the question about gratefulness. I'm grateful that I can, even in tough times or even in difficult scenarios, I can stay positive, be positive, and continue to spread that hopefully to others as well. And that's something that I am very grateful for, because it isn't always easy.
Yeah, Kevin, tell me, for you, what sort of a legacy do you think you want to leave, and what sort of imprint do you want to leave on the rest of the world?
Well, you know what? I'm at that mid-career point in my life where what I've noticed is that question evolves over time. For now, my answer is relatively simple. I simply want to create more products that improve people's lives around the world. And I know it's it's not that deep, but at the moment, as I sit here in my career and as I run this business, we haven't changed the business model. We haven't kind of pivoted as many firms do, especially over a 20-year history. We're doing the same thing we did before. My only goal is just to do more of what we're doing today. I don't want to change it. I don't want to mess with it. I just want more inventors coming through with cool new products that help change people, help improve lives, help make our world a better place. And for me, that is my only and my exclusive goal for now. And then as I age and mature, and as I watch my kids grow up and all of that, then that will change. But for now, it's just throttle to the floor, and it's a one-track goal. It's my, we talked about priorities earlier. My goal is very focused. That is my top priority, and I really make sure that I don't get distracted by the noise of other things, which may also be great and will be great. But for now, one track mind, make more products that make the world a better place. Very simple.
And there's nothing wrong with being laser focused. And Kevin, you talked earlier about being present and grateful. So I'm curious to finally ask you, before I ask you how people can get connected with you, what's the one thing that you won't take for granted anymore, or after living through a lockdown through COVID?
Yeah, COVID was crazy. It changed a lot of people's priorities in terms of spending, in terms of entrepreneurship. And we really saw at the beginning of COVID, there was a massive drop in interest in people becoming entrepreneurs or starting their big idea or going forward with their product. And it was scary because hindsight's 2020. You obviously you look back and you realize, okay, things are coming back around now. Hopefully, fingers crossed, getting back to some level of normalcy. But in the beginning, we didn't know how long that was going to last. Is this going to be a 2-week, 2-month, 2-year, 20-year thing? And that was, it was quite scary. And we didn't know if, the innovation and entrepreneurship was going to drop off the map for people instead deciding to, hunker down and literally buy bunkers. And, we had clients that were dropping off because they wanted to buy an armory as opposed to invent some cool thing that would save lives. And that was a scary moment because we saw innovation as a whole, I think as an entire nation, take a drop in certain areas. And that's where, now that we're kind of at least somewhat out the other side of that, we always want to make sure that we are pushing hard on the education side to make sure that innovation and positivity both working hand in hand together to make sure that people are motivated, encouraged to benefit the world, as opposed to just batten down the hatches. And that was a scary thing to see, but it's nice to see that we are coming out of it. And it was somewhat short-lived, let's say, although it feels like it's been ages. And hopefully we're nearing the end. But all in all, I'll say we want to make sure that education, motivation, entrepreneurial spirits, positivity remains high. And we want to do whatever we can in our part, in our little tiny piece of the world in the product design business, to try and help and move that pendulum forward.
Yeah, Kev, based off your last answer, you've sparked me to ask this one follow-up question, which is, in your mind or in your realm, what do you classify as an effective or innovative inventor or innovator there, buddy? How would you define that?
Anybody can be an inventor. Let's just start there. If you survey your audience, you'd probably find that 75, 80% of them have had an invention idea in their life. The key difference between those who are an effective innovator and those who are a non-effective innovator is in one word, and it's execution. There are those who see a problem, identify a solution, which is incredible, by the way. So first and foremost, if you see something in your life and you think it's a good idea or invention, know that a good idea is probably only going to happen one, maybe two, if you're super lucky, maybe 3 times in your life, where you're really going to come up with some invention idea that could benefit, a certain portion of humanity. So when you see that idea, the key difference between successful and unsuccessful is just getting it done. It's the execution. So the next time that you have that invention idea, understand that it's a very rare phenomenon that's just occurred to you, and make sure that you seize control. It doesn't mean that you have to go spending money or hiring us at Mako Design to design and engineer it, but it does mean that at a bare minimum, I truly believe you have a responsibility, at least just to start researching it. See, just start Googling it, right? You have the whole world at your fingertips right now. You've come up with that invention, Google it. Then start to see how it would work. Maybe even do some little rough sketches. Doesn't matter if you're a designer or not. Just sketch some ideas. How would this thing actually work? How would this come together? And at least you'll know, even if you decided then, you know what, this is actually a terrible idea for XYZ reason, that's okay. At least you pursued it. And that is execution, executing on that idea, actually pushing that idea forward. As that idea evolves, and let's say you do think there's some merit or some value, just spend a little bit of effort, as we talked about earlier on the call, on your high priority item and doing it, let's say once a day, if you want to do it well, right? Again, it could just be a half an hour a day if that's all the time that you can squeeze in. That in and itself is executing on that idea. That is the key to those ideas that you end up seeing on the shelves versus the many more that just stay in people's inventors' noodles for the rest of their days.
Absolutely. And Kevin, finally, if people want to get connected with the podcast or Mako Designs, what's the best way they can do that, Bonnie?
Yeah, just look up the Product Startup Podcasts. Or go to makodesign.com, MAKO design.com. You can go to our blog or the podcast, or you can search me, Kevin Mako, MAKO. Just Google it in. I'm on every social media platform, and we've got tons of tutorials, all the rest. If you're just doing, like I say, starting on just the research phase, just start reading some of the blog articles or listening to some of the podcasts on your way to work or whatever else you're doing. And that's all it takes to spark that new idea, that learning, that expanded view of the world, that open-mindedness that may take you on a very interesting career path, as it's done for hundreds of clients in the past. So I encourage you to reach out. And Kevin, I appreciate you having me on the show. Thanks again for inviting me here. And it's been great talk and really good, very deep, insightful questions.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the compliment. And the time this morning. It's most appreciated.
Thank you. Take care.